Welcome back, team. Kate, Guy, Tex. Freezing here in New Zealand. Looks like it's not too bad over there in WA. We do have a huge announcement for a little bit later in the show that does involve Guy, but we'll just hold off on that for the time being. I'm sure a lot of people who follow triathlon closely would have probably seen this trickle out through social media. I know we had a big weekend of racing, some incredibly important races in a lot of the series, but the news that we have to report a little bit later on is probably going to take precedent over that. So as I say, that's a teaser for later on in the show. Tex, you're looking a little bit cold, mate. Is Auckland treating you well at the moment for that dodgy sciatic nerve? Or does it work well in the cold temperatures?
Yeah, it's pretty Baltic here. I think this is the first winter we've done in like 4 years. And I mean, it was a mint day today. Great day to be in the office, but it's cold.
When you were watching the Alpe d'Huez stage of the Tour de France, did that bring back memories? And has in any way the performances of Pogacar made you question whether they're still clean? What do you think?
Yeah, like I've booked flights to go to Alpe d'Huez next year. We're going back. It's incredible. Like to go back to back stages there was so cool. Like it brought back so many memories when we were there a couple of years ago. It's kind of some of the best cycling we've done, especially when they used a lot of the Alpe d'Huez triathlon course by doing Ornon and then up Alpe d'Huez, except they got way more crowds. Yeah, I hope cycling's still clean. Well, not still clean. I hope it's clean. And I've just got to assume it is, that all the measures are in place because I don't want to lose the enjoyment for the sport because of that with that big shadow. Like I love to watch it and it's like one of the highlights of my sort of sporting year following the tour. So all that sort of doubt, try and kind of push that to the back of the mind and just enjoy the sport for what it is.
Yeah. Have you guys, Kate, Guy, have you ridden Alpe d'Huez?
No.
No?
No.
Oh.
No.
No.
We've been in Morzine for a couple of years and we watched the tour a few years ago when it was in Morzine and then they had a rest day and then left from there. But haven't made Alpe d'Huez yet.
Oh,
that's
well,
where
you don't mention
up the dew plan.
Yeah. Yeah, on the dew plan.
Big time.
Big time. Yeah. Let's just say I wasn't at climbing weight. Not to bring back power to weight as a meaningful metric that we should follow, but when you're my size, it does matter. It certainly does matter on the hills. Morzine, okay, that's going to bring back memories for Tex. He did a solo camp there once, and I think, what was my challenge to you? Was it like ride 30 hours in a week, or was it 30 hours?
I think I did. It was 25 or 30 out. I can't remember. It was a lot, and I was climbing 3,000 sort of a day as well. And it was just, ride till lunch, run off the bike for 30 minutes and then go for a swim every afternoon for a week or whatever it was. It was epic. That was my second year there. Wicked town for triathlon, given that everyone else is a downhill mountain biker. I loved it. Yeah, I'd happily go back there as well.
That pool is pretty awesome to swim in. The views when you're like turning is amazing. And the bridge that goes over the top.
Yeah.
And no one uses it.
Yeah, it's actually not one of the more densely populated triathlon towns, but much more for the mountain biking and obviously skiing in the winter as well. Very expensive though. Only probably coaches pulling in the type of income that you guys, Kate and Guy, are pulling in would be able to afford to go there regularly.
No, we actually ran a camp. We had a camp there with athletes and then included a couple of days of the tour. We didn't make any money off it. No money. That was not about that. But it was an incredible experience. Fantastic.
Was that just off your own back? Was that Aussie athletes or Guy who was involved in that?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we've done it twice, I believe. And 1 year we went from, actually both years we've gone from Challenger off and gone over there and run a camp. So it was pretty cool. And we do it like I would say quite high-end style. So we have a chalet, and then there's chefs at the chalet that cook for you, so you get a certain amount of meals. It was really, really cool experience.
Yeah. Will you be offering that next year?
Just before we get on to anything else, what are the dates for that next year? And is there a discount that we can offer to athletes?
Yeah.
One that doesn't swim and run, but happy to come biking. Just asking for a friend.
Did you ever go to Buzz Performance there? So Buzz Performance is run by an ex-professional triathlete from Tasmania, Amelia, and her husband. And so they help you out with organising. So a lot of the swim training, run trainings we did ourselves. But in terms of going to the right places for Tour de France, we had them take us for the day. So they took us on the ride, made sure we're in the right spot to watch us, took us back. And so they were able to help us organise the camps, lane hire, all that sort of stuff for the swimming. That was great.
Set that up for next year. Give us the dates, and then we'll look to book in. Because I could take people up the Duplane. I could easily be the SAG going up the Duplane. No problems at all.
No, dude, you'll be dominating by then. You'll be like, what's it? Putty pant, 52 kilos.
Oh, yeah. If I'm like Putty pant, I actually have to stop eating now to get to that point because his legs are like my forearm.
They literally are. He's still got some kick to him too when he was going for the poker shot. I was like, damn.
Yeah, he did. And I think he lost out in the King of the Mountains to Richard Carapaz at the end. But man, he could sprint when he needed to. But this is not a cycling show. This is actually a triathlon podcast.
Although these two wanted to be.
Yeah, I've got to be honest.
Wait, how about that last stage? Wow, yeah.
Well, let's circle back a little bit. There was some triathlon over the weekend. Let's go to Boise first because you two, just remind the listeners, how many years did you live in Boise?
12. I was there for 12 years for 6 months of the year.
6 months of the year, and then you managed to lock horns with this lovely gentleman who nobody knows, but he's had a haircut for the podcast because, again, it's probably related to something we'll talk about later in the show. He had to put on his best face. But how long did you live in Boise for?
10 years.
10 years, okay.
Yeah, I do miss it. I love that town. It's a great town.
Yeah. Well, I remember you guys were kind enough to take us out to dinner when we were there staying with Jocelyn when I used to coach here. And Jocelyn didn't really take us out for dinner. so you guys offered to take us out. And the centre of the town looks awesome. And I've got to be honest, where they finished the race, I remember doing a lot of run training through those river trails. And, there was some awesome running in and around town. I don't remember going to the reservoir as such, but you mentioned Quinn's Pond and the like, and it's not that bad a place to train. And remind us, where did we do that ride up to the top of the mountain?
That was Bogus Basin.
Bogan, that's right. So what elevation does that take us up to?
Just under 7,000, maybe 6.5
feet.
1,000 feet. Yeah.
Oh, you're saying that for our American listeners, are you?
Yeah, it's not my bad.
Because you use 7,000 meters, Jack's going, I'm with you. What is just for the metric amongst us? What does that equate to roughly in meters?
What's 6,000 feet? 2K. So 3,000 is 1K. So you roughly 3,000 to a K, roughly.
Okay.
Oh, wait, and we did that easy ride to Idaho City. Do we remember that?
Oh,
easy
yeah.
Yeah.
Was that when Hannah was with us as well?
No, don't bring that back because the weather turned. And it was absolutely Baltic. It was horrific. Okay. Let's get back to the actual athletes that raced on the weekend.
We've raced the course. We've raced it.
Yeah,
you've raced the course. So it was from when they used to host a 70.3, and they brought that back. I didn't know that Boise was typically a very windy place, and it turned out on race day to be very windy. Guy, as the swimmer amongst us, do you think that was windy enough not to have age groupers swim?
Oh, I think they're paranoid about it. Anything that's like creates adverse conditions, people are just very worried about deaths now. So there is a bit of wind because the lake is like long. It's a little bit wide, but it's very long. So if the wind's coming down, which it was, unsure of the exact wind direction, but if it's coming down the length of the lake, it does create a bit of chop on the lake. So I think that's probably why they shorten the circuits for the pros. But could you swim in it? Yeah, you could swim in it. Is it pretty rough? It can be rough, but, no.
I don't think the swim times were like when you mentioned that last night and Tex jumped on and he said, well, looking at the swim times, it didn't look like they'd shortened it like a huge amount, and it didn't look like it slowed them down a huge amount. So they just made the loops bigger, or what did they do to make changes for the pro?
I think they made it smaller. Did they made it two smaller loops rather than
one long one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. But it certainly didn't seem to slow them down significantly. It was a roughly what you'd expect for a 2 kilometre swim, but it did break the field up a little bit. So that made it pretty interesting, especially in the men's race as well. But, the bike course as such is still, you look at what Sam Long rode, that's pretty impressive because he came out with a deficit and just mowed his way through the field. 152 on a windy day as a solo ride. Tex, that was a pretty impressive performance from Sam.
Yeah, I think it's hard to he's probably one of the best 70.3 riders in America. Like particularly when he races in America, he's just so strong, especially on a course like that as well, where it's just raw power. He is quite incredible, especially when you've got other guys that aren't slouches. Like these guys are all pros, and some of them are pretty noted bikers, and he's putting 5 minutes into the next best cyclist.
Yeah.
It puts a bit of perspective in things, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm going to speculate here. In other races with stronger front pack swimmers who are also capable bikers, like the best guys in the world here, I know Sam's always trying to prove a point that he can be competitive against the best in the world, but I just don't feel he makes up that kind of time on a slightly deeper field. And one of the things I think about the race, I just don't think as a Pro Series race, it sort of had the deepest field that we're going to see in the 70.3s going around this year. And so Sam was able to make some inroads really early and get to the front and get to the front with quite a dominant lead. He did this in St. George a couple of years ago, didn't he? Where he mowed through the field. I think our Kiwi Ben Hamilton was second that day, but he was second by, like 5+ minutes on Sam. But I think Sam also rode this on feel. So for some reason, he's decided, whether it's a conscious decision or not, to not have power available to him. He only had it on his watch, I think was the call. And I think it was in reaction to feeling like he was underperforming at the beginning of the season, and he wanted to go back to just, like you said, Tex, just riding like raw power. Did anyone hear anything more about that? Did they see any of that in the feedback?
I saw it prior that he just said, I'm not using a computer. I don't know if he did or didn't. Time will tell if there was. I haven't gone on. He usually posts everything on Strava, so who knows?
He said 380 watts he could see on his watch. He had a bit of a glimpse at it, and I saw it in talking about it afterwards for maybe the first hour. So that's going to probably make up a bit of a swim deficit along the way. So sort of 380-ish for the first hour. But once he got off the bike, he was untouched. And then a few minor places sort of changed across the day. And there's a couple of Americans in Ari Clow and is it the guy with the Insta profile, Tri Benny? I think he managed a 107 high, and Ari Clow ran sort of a 107 low, and they ran their way into good positions at the end of the day, but still a long way back from Sam Long. So any other thoughts on the men's race that we're missing here?
There's always been some exciting men's racing there. Actually, who was one year they did the ride in the wetsuits?
Callum Millwood.
Do you remember?
That.
No, someone else. Was it? No, I keep on thinking it was Bevan Doherty, but no, was there a Kiwi who did it too? Did he win it one year? Who was the sprint finish with?
He might have, but I'm pretty sure Callum did it in a wetsuit as well, because it was absolutely freezing.
Freezing. Yeah.
And they shortened the bike ride, though. And I think the bike ride
shortened the bike ride, but left the swim.
Yeah, but left the swimming, and they rode the bike in their wetsuits. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
that was But it's an awesome race. It's great to see it back. The first part of that bike course is pretty fast, because you come off the reservoir and out of the swim and you pretty much go straight downhill, so you can hold a lot of momentum for that. I wouldn't say the course is too technical, so there's the opportunity to keep carrying a lot of speed throughout most of the bike ride. So fast bike times, depending on the direction of the wind, is understandable.
Yeah, 1:52 and then a 70-minute run off, and I think you could see at the finish line Sam was pretty elated with his performance, but he's got to be, because when it does click for him, when there isn't more guys out of the water in that front group, if there's only 2 or 3, as there, or maybe a handful of them, and they were all riding individually, his bike and run performance is totally world class, and finishing in the low 3:30s on a day where it's been pretty windy. It's a significant performance for him, but I just don't know if it stacks up against the rest of the pro series when some of the bigger hitters turn up, because I just don't think you can give up. Well, he only gave up 2 minutes in the water, which was pretty impressive considering it was Vincent Louis and Ben Fay at the front, who are pretty decent swimmers, and it wasn't an easy swim, so he'd be pretty happy with that. And Ari Clow gave up more time as well, but Ari Clow is a beautiful runner. Talking about running technique, okay, Ari Clow, I've got to be honest, he looks like he's moving when he's running, but Guy, is he a torsional runner or is he just a fluid runner?
He is not torsional. He is not your Jacks or your Martin Van Riels. They are a separate kettle of fish to your Ari Clow. He looks strong. I don't know if I'd be like as fluid, but he just looks strong, and I look very foot running. From what I saw. Yeah. Jack would have more to say on that.
Yeah, Tex, of the 2 runners there, Tri Benny and Ari Clow, did you manage to catch any of that footage?
Yeah, I mean, they both just look like natural fast runners, and they look like they're moving fast. I think maybe Ari was in the Pumas as well, which I think a few of those guys that do run a bit more forefoot and get after it, they favour that shoe. It's like a shoe design for that sort of style of running, whereas I don't know, it's more sort of unorthodox runners need a little bit more going on in the shoe. A few other options to land with, not just the forefoot. Yeah.
I do think. Sorry, man. I do think there's like 2 different racing styles that are unfolding here of what you've just said. So you've got when you've got all of the really good guys, it's very different dynamic to the race than it is when you might have a slightly less field. Not saying that Sam Long is not as good as these good guys, but there's more separation or less density of really good swimmers in the field. You tend to have a race where it really just splits apart like it has done here, where those powerful riders like Sam clear out and then it's like, see ya at the finish line. Whereas when you've got those really good swimmers and good bikers like the Martin Van Riels or Norwegians or whoever else, the race seems to unfold totally differently. I'm wondering if those guys like Sam are just put under that pressure early and they just don't get the best out of themselves in the day because they're pressured to try to get to the front, and they're just overriding. And maybe that's why Sam's taken away that data to get the best out of himself rather than feeling that pressure. So it'd be interesting to see him on that day if we had all of those guys that you were saying earlier there and he performed exactly like that, what would the result be? And I think it would be a good battle, but we're just not seeing that because there's probably some psychology in it as well.
I reckon you're absolutely right. That's a really good point. His belief that he can get to the front when there's a smattering of people in front of him and he's picking them off. But if you had let's say a Mika Newt and Martin Van Riel and a Rico Bogan, who can also ride 380 watts for a fair amount of time, and Sam's not making any inroads, he'd lose a little bit more heart that he's actually making progress. In those races where he's dominated like this, he sort of mows past people. They just can't even stay on its wheel. And everyone knows if you're just continually passing people really quickly, maybe those guys have been able to get into his head a little bit by just making it a lot harder for him to make those passes. And, with the 20-meter draft rule, harder to make those passes if people are almost at the same level of ability at you. So yeah, you're right. I think it's a really good point. He's a dominant athlete when he can bully the race. And if he can't bully the race as much, it'll be interesting. So maybe the removal of data was that, is he just didn't want to know, he wanted to commit, and he certainly did, and it proved to be a great performance on the day. The female race was sort of great opportunity for Pro Series points, although Kirsten Casper's not doing the Pro Series, Kate.
No, but it was a good battle up front. Like, I think the top three was a great battle. There was a bit of a drop off from then on, but you've got, three athletes, classy athletes that were fighting at the front, and it's good to see that it wasn't dominated the whole time. There was some changes going on, and it was a real battle. So I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, and Kirsten Casper, every time she sort of throws her hat into the ring for these 70.3, she's actually pretty competitive. And her and Katie Severis had the same, talking about running technique again, because that's all I ever think about, running technique. Katie Severis and Kirsten Casper had very similar running technique, very low heel lift. They sort of, and this is by no means a criticism, sort of scuttle along, don't they? But at a deceptively fast pace.
Yeah.
And I actually thought when she got off the bike, if she hasn't spent too much and she'd lost some time to Hannah DeVette and Hannah Berry, if she runs to her potential, she can still take the victory. And she did. And she ended up doing it, making up that 3 or 4 minutes that she got off the bike before. Well, she won by 2 minutes, so she must have passed them sort of that 16, 17K mark or somewhere around there.
Yeah, she's just very efficient. Like it's whatever works best, and how she runs. It's very economical, and I feel like that run on the greenbelt can be a little deceiving. Like, it was meant to be hot. I'm not sure what the final temperature did get to. We were watching the temperatures, and it still looked like the morning was going to be a lot warmer than a heat advisory at the end of the day. There are some shaded areas around it, but it is deceivingly rolling. It's not completely flat. So. It was.
They looked hot at the end. I think they looked pretty hot at the end. I saw Hannah DeVette fall over at the end. She looked pretty drenched in sweat and exhausted. But, look, another good performance from Hannah DeVette and Hannah Berry as well. She said she felt like she was stuck in one gear all day on the bike, and the run had some good and parts and some less good parts. But picking up valuable Pro Series points. Hannah DeVette's starting to be fairly consistent. The run seems to be a little bit of her Achilles heel, and it's almost like I think she's a better runner than that. I'm not sure she's as good a biker as what she, what the split that she puts out there, because it always seems to cost her in the back end of the run. But look, it looked like it was a great race, and it looked like a great venue. So let's hope next year they're not affected by the temperatures at all. Now, there was another big announcement across the weekend, or it was meant to come on Friday, and if I had a drum roll machine, I'd be like, the T100's about to announce that in 2027 it's going to be exactly the same. So, Tex, firstly, is your bank account 5,000 USD higher? Are you going to give us the bank account update from the Challenger Series last year? Do we know if it's if you've been paid out?
I have not. I actually need to email someone about that now, because I need to even work out if I'm entitled to it at this rate. It has dragged on. As far as the rankings showed, I was there, but I don't know. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, it's not like it's clear, is it?
No, it hasn't made it enticed me to go and sign up for another one at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know. It wasn't the most exciting announcement. At least it's still happening. At least there's another series out there and there's races to be had, but it wasn't. I don't know what anyone expected to be the big announcement. I don't think anyone thought it was going to be something groundbreaking, given the history behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know we were promised a lot early in the year. Sam Renouf said in the first quarter, we're going to blow your minds. I think we've heard that a couple of times for the T100. And I know we get a lot of stick. I've had a lot of stick from people messaging me or putting on our social media about how we're on to the T100 and we don't give it a fair shot. But really, it hasn't evolved, and it doesn't look like it's going to evolve in 2027. They're going to have separate races around the world. I don't think it has the same momentum as the Pro Series for sure.
One thing, though, that was the announcement before the announcement is they said they were going to use those glasses next year.
Yes.
Now, I actually thought that was cooler than the announcement because it adds a different angle to the racing. I think I like that idea. It's like Formula One. Like if you could be in there and it would be even cooler in the WTCS races where it's close and you're in a bunch. You'd feel like, darting in between the bikes and everything. It adds a whole different dynamic for the viewership that you just didn't get in other races, particularly in a race course that doesn't have much scenery often because we do a lot of laps. It's like it just creates something different. And I think those glasses can stream to data as well. So if you're getting a bit of an overlay of some accurate data, that'd be wicked to see like the speed or the heart rate or the power.
I mean, we couldn't afford them, Tex, but what about the rich coaches in WA? You'd both have a set of Oakley Meta glasses, wouldn't you?
No? I'll just go get them. Hang on.
We could podcast on it. Okay, now, I don't want to be the guy that pours cold water on this, but we've heard before about the fact that the T100 is going to bring this revolutionary televisual package to us with metrics and data and everything like that. I just do not know at this point whether these glasses are going to add to our race day experience because there's been problems. If you think of the fact that they've got the Race Ranger on the bikes and they're still not being used to the full capacity with GPS, maybe a live race course with people scattered all around the place so we know exactly where anyone is at any one time. That there's a lot of technology in the Race Ranger units that could add to the information that we receive. I have seen some of the heart rate data that comes up on the screen, which is completely erroneous. Most people are working at 95% of max for 3 hours and 15 minutes, not physically possible. So if they're going to get us some better stuff, I do hope that these glasses can do it. But I'm going to say whether they can do anything live with it, I don't know.
Can someone, as a keen listener, tell me what they actually launched? What did they say? They're doing the T100 and T50 series. What's happening? What is it?
Well, yeah. So those two things. The World Series is becoming the T50. So we call an Olympic distance race a T50 now. So they must have to adjust the length of the bike ride.
They haven't announced, I don't think, what they're doing there.
So there's the distance has to reflect 50. Yep. So there's a small change that must, whether it does or not. But they're sticking with the same split gender races for 2027. So they're still having the race to Dubai, but they've still the split venues. So men and women not going to race together. So I don't think it was met with overwhelming positivity by the male and female pros of the world. And as to who's going to race them, I know that they made this announcement on the Friday before the London WTCS event, and the two faces that they had at the front of that was the Matt Hauser and the Taylor Knibb as the athletes. But, let's move on and chat about that race in London. I just have a suspicion that the shift in emphasis from the T100/PTO is going to be that short course racing, as I've always maintained, is actually much more exciting to watch than a T100. And now they're all bundled together. Is there going to be a small shift to say we actually favour what the product that we can bring to the table for short course racing, because we are getting sprint finishes? And as Tex said, imagine if those Oakley glasses can provide us with, images from within the bike groups as the races unfold. And we've all got a bit of short course preference in terms of what we like to watch. Maybe that's where the move's going to be, is that the PTO becomes more short course oriented. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
Well, they could buy Super League at some point if they want. They just keep going down to the more TV. There was a Super League in the weekend.
Super League over the weekend. There was a Super League over the weekend. I don't even know. Can you watch those races anymore? Are they on YouTube?
Don't know.
As live events?
I
don't know if they are.
But
Tyler Mitchell won, but it certainly doesn't carry the same.
Yeah,
that's all I've got. I mean, come on, Guy. You're a short course man.
Actually, I am, and usually I watch all of this, but between the Tour de France and the WTCS, I
and
miss
the Commonwealth
this
Games.
And the Commonwealth Games, obviously, yeah. So, with no triathlon, but there's lots of swimming as well. Okay.
Next week, though, I'll have watched it. I'll find it and watch it, and I'll give us all a brief on it.
Okay. Then the WTCS racing. Alex Yee, when Hayden Wild rejoins the racing, they've got a lot of work to be competitive with this current crop of athletes that are in form at the moment. Tex, did you see any of it?
I'm not going to lie, no. As guys already alluded to, do you know how much cycling there was to watch this weekend?
Right.
I'll give you a full breakdown if you
want. Guy, what was your thoughts? Men's first.
I think I covered this last time we were on a chat about the WTCS. I think the way that the houses and the Vasco Velaka, how do you say his last name?
Velaka,
yeah. Are racing, and the like thereof, that whole front group now, they are, as soon as they get out of the water, there's no looking for other people to roll turns, no getting angry, there's no yelling Alistair Brownlee style at people. Sorry, Alistair, if he ever listens to this, I actually like you, don't hurt me. But they just head down for the first K, they don't care, they're making a separation. And that never used to happen. Even 2 years ago, when Matt was battling with Hayden, with Alex, they've figured out the recipe. If you're 40 seconds down, you're out. See you later. And they're strong enough and they're rotating well enough after they make that separation. But they're taking onus on that early. They're like, okay, if you guys are going to sit on, it doesn't matter. I'm going to get through 5 minutes of this, 5-minute power test, and then we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what's making the big difference. So even if you are an Alex or a Hayden, and Alex can ride. People are like, oh, he's a runner. I'm like, no, he can ride. But he can't ride solo up to a group of, let's say it's 3 guys in the first 4 or 5 minutes really working. But then once you get through that, the other guys start working because they realize they've got a gap.
Yeah.
And I think the houses are realizing this. They're like, okay, these guys won't work to start with, so there's no point in getting angry. I'm all in. And whatever happens, happens, but at least I made this an honest attempt to break away. Yeah. And we saw out of the water in London, there was a stream. There was no separation.
Yeah.
But they made the separation from that initial just head down work. Don't worry about other people. If someone rolls over the top of me, great. But if they don't, I'm going all in.
Yeah.
And that's what's truly making the difference. It's not the whole bike ride. It's like the first 2 to 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And we used to see that. Alistair used to do that. I gave him a disservice earlier. Alistair used to do that, and he's probably the pioneer of this. But he'd get angry with people not working. You don't see that anymore. They're just like, oh, well, I'll roll back around.
Well, it's because the other guys who have the same skill set as Hauser, who are fantastic runners, are the front pack swimmers, Velasco, Hidalgo, DeVay, Lehman. The list just goes on. Even Morgan Pearson made that front group.
Yeah.
Really and when you say that, I always used to watch the swim and wait for that small gap between the swimmers, but you've actually realised now that small gap only has to be a foot. If you are literally coming out of the water and there's that tiny gap before as you mount your bike, those 20 guys that can swim that well, and it was a big group that separated, but they were all in the front pack as they went round on the run. there was a front pack of like 6 or 7. Gonzalez was there as well. They were all there, and they were all the guys that got out of the water at the beginning, and they all committed to help on the bike as well. So, but Matt Hauser, and I hate to say it, for the Australian in the room, he came down from altitude. He was comfy.
Oh, he's so comfy.
They were throwing hammers at him at the end, and then he just Velasquez went on the sprint, and Matt just sat on his shoulder.
He was still just, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. Wait.
Yeah, and you could see it. He had the inside line into the last corner, and Vasco went, and I was like, "Oh, is Matt going to go?" No, he's like, "Oh, is that all you've got? Right, okay, I'll just roll past you, and I'll just do whatever I need to do." And so Matt's changed the face of it. The question is Hayden the only guy who's the good enough biker to not let those gaps actually occur? Because there's got to be someone else in that peloton that can ride as well as a Hayden can. And I think it's quite a sobering position for the Alex Yees and the Hayden Wilds of this world, who certainly are heading towards LA and want a medal. But it's been proven time and time again. You step away from short course racing and dabble in something else. Christian Blumenfeld tried it, didn't work. Hayden's gone and done middle distance racing. Alex gone and done his marathon running and so forth. It's almost like you can't afford to forget the sensations and how the race unfolds and all the little dynamics of it, because if you don't year on year stay at the cutting edge of the front of this short course racing, those people that step away from it, I don't know, has anyone come back and been able to be prominent again? Hayden and Alex have got a lot to think about across the rest of the season.
You would think that if Hayden, Alex, and they need a couple of others, but if they have a couple of others that have got the firepower, they can probably make it back. But it won't be in the first 10K. It'll be in an Olympic, it's going to be 30K, and in a sprint, it's going to be real hard. Yeah. But they can do it, but they need just more firepower in that chasing group, because they won't be ever probably swimming 10 seconds behind Matt. I don't think it's going to
be. One name that comes to mind, though, isn't there?
Guy Crawford.
Dylan McCulloch.
Dylan McCulloch, but he gets out in the front group.
Sandbagger.
He's going to have to pay him a lot of money for it. Yeah, but he tried that at way high and then rode Hayden off his wheel because he was. But I mean, a domestique is a solution as such. But I mean, you're going to need someone who's an absolute incredible cyclist, because these guys are good riders. It's not that they're making a gap because the rest are weak. They're literally they've trained specifically to race in this fashion. This is how they're racing now, and it's just changed again that way those races unfold. Dylan McCulloch for us Kiwis. Don't know who Alex Yee's got, because his domestics are racing middle distance nowadays. Now, the women, Kate, still a bit of a animosity between Lisa Turch and Cassandra Beaugrand, do you think?
No, not at all. Didn't even notice. What race were you watching?
They come to the finish line and they just both go their separate ways. There was a great women's race as well.
It was.
I watched it. Taylor Knibb and Anima got out of the water. Fantastic breakaway. It would have been, I don't think it affected the race overall when Anima rode into the road cone, because that was a pretty nasty way to go down. That stopped her pretty quickly.
Yeah.
However, she wasn't contributing, so it was Taylor Knibb's breakaway, and she faded a bit at the end. But then she didn't fade on the run that much. I thought it was a pretty impressive performance, because I think it was a Edmonton World Cup that Taylor Knibb won, which is, was her first World Cup win. But she's still showing that she's got some leg speeds, because when they caught her at the end of that bike ride, or not caught her, but they didn't catch her that long onto the run. I think, was she 7th overall in the end? She didn't fade a lot.
No.
But a great women's race, Kate.
Oh, it was. It was. And as you mentioned, just the crowds and the course and them running through, like when they interviewed Matt Hauser at the end and he just said, what do they call the building that they run through again? I forgot the name. Where transition was.
Yeah.
He just said the echo and the sound, he said it's just unlike anything else. And and you could feel that like watching it on the screen. It was fantastic, racing. So did we expect? I think their results were probably pretty close to what we expected, but it was good close racing, which made the sprint distance is exciting.
It's exciting to watch. Not sure it's that exciting to do, Guy. But it is, and maybe that's, as I say, I've always maintained this, that these athletes are very marketable. The men and women are very marketable. The T100 is not a race that brings the same level of excitement. And I mean, I was at that venue for the last time it had a T100 a couple of years ago, and you're absolutely right. The huge convention centre that they run through, it is just an echo chamber, and it's a course that lends itself to having a lot of people standing around. They've got the age group race. It just had so many people there. And I'm sure, as you say, the athletes absolutely loved it as well. So it made for a huge spectacle. And maybe that's why the T100 was announced on the Friday beforehand.
We've seen now, like once Tilda has like her confidence now, she knows how well she can. Once you've got that breakthrough race and experience, all of a sudden, there's no doubting. It's her fitness and her level probably hasn't changed that much, but her psychology has now. Yeah. And she knows that she's good enough to be up there and to podium or win races.
Yeah. The little rolling hill for her 4-foot running didn't serve her well on the downhill. That's where they made their final break on her, Tersch and Beaugrand. They just ran the downhills a little bit better. And I think it came down to that, what we talked about the other week, the 4-foot strike just didn't work as well for her going downhill. And the long levers as well made it a bit more difficult. There's an art to uphill and mainly, tell me, Tex, cross-country days. Downhill running, it's an art form, isn't it?
I wasn't thinking just cross-country. If you ever do Auckland Marathon, it's coming off the Harbour Bridge and doing that Harbour Bridge descent appropriately, that you can not destroy yourself if you're doing the marathon for the back end, or if you're doing the half, you've got about 4K to go, but you shoot straight back up a steep little nasty climb on Shelley Beach. But it's a K downhill, and it's like it's free fall without blowing the quads or overstriding the hammies. And it's a real art in terms of like how you sort of create your balance, I suppose, and do it so you're not just mashing your legs. Yeah.
In the men's and women's race, you could see on the little hill section, Gonzalez ran the downhill really well. And they managed to make a break on Tilda Manson on the downhill section. And we're not talking a lot. It looked like 30 meters, maybe max, of that little rolling hill that they had in there. So it was great racing, and I totally enjoyed watching it. And again, I think maybe that's where the future of marketable televised triathlon is. I don't know.
We've got two athletes, like you'd say that Cassandra and Matt, the tactics that they both had, they deployed the same tactic.
Yeah.
They just waited. She waited for Lisa to kick and then just ran next to her. It was like, she was a little bit more like, peace out, I'm going now. Whereas Matt was a little bit more patient. But you'd almost argue, and this little bit left field, but every time Lisa's in a race and Cassandra's in there, Cassandra's probably just not going to give up. You'd think that because of that animosity, she's like, you won't beat me. Never. It's not going to happen. Yeah. And that will be her mindset. She'll just be like, and a few other interesting things happened in that race. Like, I think Taylor Spiver was one of her few times outside the top 10. So she didn't
Which was
have a great
unusual
day.
because she was well positioned at the early part of the bike ride. Like, she was towards the front of the chase group. So, that's unusual for Taylor Spiver.
Yeah, she's usually there or thereabouts. She's usually like between 4th and 7th or something. And Georgia Taylor Brown, pretty consistent with her result there, so right in the middle. And interesting enough, we talked about Boise 70.3. Kirsten Casper's been racing the WTCS this year again. I think she did Yokohama and something else. So, she's got to have good run speed. But anyway, I digress.
Yeah. No, I agree. She's one of those athletes that just pops into the odd 70.3, but seems to have her heart still set in short course racing. But that shows the depth of knowledge, Guy, that you actually have. And this podcast today would like to recognise that depth of Kate. What are you laughing at?
No, nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So, Kate, would you like to tell us and the listeners the accolade that Guy Crawford received across the course of the weekend?
Yes, a very well-deserved. Guy was awarded the Triathlon Western Australia Coach of the Year on Saturday night. Well done.
Yeah, long overdue is what I heard was the general consensus amongst the throng of social media and news outlets that covered the awards ceremony.
Yep.
Long overdue would have been the best way to describe it. Would you agree with that, Kate?
Long overdue, yes. Yeah, look, he's very passionate about his coaching, and I see, what he does and how he does it and how it's a detriment to his personal triathlon performances.
Yeah. Is that okay?
He will admit it. Like, he will be, I've got to do the coaching stuff rather than I need to be going for my run or my swim or my bike.
Whereas yourself... Yes,
I'll do both.
Training.
I'll just get up
earlier.
Okay. I won't let Guy say this, but Guy had some notable successes this year, didn't he, with some of his professional athletes and age group athletes? Any highlights that stand out, Kate? That we won't get Guy to talk about them unless he's prepared to. But
yeah, he'll talk about them.
Yeah, what are some of the highlights that you had this year as a coach?
I've had a few. I'd say it's more broad than just one highlight or one athletic performance. It's not, and it's going to sound bad if my pros or my good age group are listening, but it's not necessarily their one outcome or their one performance it doesn't really matter. But it's more the journey that coaching has given me. So not just the athletes' outcomes, but what I've learned over the last, since 1996, I started with my first triathlon coach. And then I think we've discussed, we got a Sutto style coach. I had Luke McKenzie's dad coach me for a while. We've had the scientist type Norwegian style coach, an orthopedic surgeon coach us. And everything that I've learned over 3 decades, I feel like there was some appreciation in that. And coaching is no one, I'm going to say the word cares, but it's not a thankful service, I should say. Some athletes come, some athletes go, and it's not like you get a lot of praise for it over years and years of work and putting countless hours in. You would know this better than most, and so does Kate. Jack might learn one day when he's I don't want to be an engineer anymore. But to be acknowledged for that was pretty cool, and I was thank you. It almost makes the hundreds upon hundreds of hours and the tears and the psychology worth it.
Well, I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, so about that. Was that too deep?
No. Look, and this is out there for coaches as well. I couldn't agree with you more. Coaching is about the athlete. It's not about the coach. It's a one-way transfer of energy most of the time. So I think athletes, and coaches are out there. And I think, we're in this era now where we're talking about, is AI going to take over? It's a big conversation. Training Peaks has just been sold to Garmin. Nobody really knows what Garmin's going to do with it. Is there going to be AI involved in Training Peaks? Is it going to change? Training Peaks only literally just posted one of their newsletters that talked about the fact that we should never remove the human element from coaching. Coaches should always be human, but we don't know where that's heading in the future. But it's an interesting job, and it's certainly one where there's much more energy going in one direction than the other. But occasionally you might get recognised for the work that you put in, and it's obvious that WA Triathlon recognised that, and you must have had some pretty decent success. It surprised me and Tex. Look, I've got to be honest. Tex wondered whether you were looking for a new coach because he felt he could maybe help you a little bit with your...
Tex was in my DMs. He was like, dude, have you got any spots available? I was like,
well,
my coach hasn't been recognised by anyone. But my coach just made a podcast that he can make himself sound like he knows what he's on about. Nobody's ever said he knows what he's on about.
It's funny you mentioned the AI. So I had a conversation with an athlete on Friday afternoon. They'd been having some issues, and her first words were, "So I put it in ChatGPT, and this is what it said." But she did say before that, like, "What do you think I should do?" And so we went through, and then she was like, "I put it in ChatGPT, and this is what it said." And the funny thing was, what I had said and what she and Dad had said were very similar. And I said, "Oh, well, look, there you go. At least they're saying the same sort of thing." But I'm happy to be guided by you, but this is what it told me to do. I'm like, "Oh, is this what we're coming to? This is what we're coming to?" Yeah.
No, we are. Don't worry. Like I follow this pretty closely, and the fact that Training Peaks is sold is an interesting one. There's been a lot of conversation in the community as to why. Training Peaks is the original. However, there has been some criticism that it has been reluctant to bring any AI capacity in, and it's certainly something I've looked at in the last couple of years, and I've done a lot of sort of research across the different offerings that are trying to bring some form of AI into the conversation. But I think in the last 6 months, people have become way more accepting of having AI in their life. Like 12 months ago, it was a bit different, but I think a lot of people now are doing exactly what you described is, what does ChatGPT say? And I think the coaching world is changing as a result of that as well, in the fact that that's the first thing athletes are doing now, whereas they didn't have that before. So they would go, who's a local coach that I can go to? Or where's a training plan that I can buy? I would love to know the effect that it's actually had on, training plans, like these fixed training plans that people have written. Training Peaks has got 5,000 of them stored within their portal. Every other coach I know of has some sort of fixed training plan. But I wonder if those are selling much at the moment, because with a ChatGPT plan, you could turn around and ask it to write a plan. Something goes wrong in the week, so you turn around to your AI source and say, I need to rejig that plan. And so you are getting, in some respect, coached, whereas a fixed training plan doesn't adjust. If something goes wrong, I'll buy a new plan. Tex, is there anything in your world outside of, in triathlon, where you've ever turned to AI at any stage, even from a bike perspective, bike fitting?
Oh, using it in my life?
Yeah.
At the moment? Oh, my job.
All the time?
How else do you think I do my job?
How else do you think I got a job?
No, we actually do use it. It's more like just cutting through research. Like, if you need to understand, because the cool thing about my job is, we have so many different projects, and you've got to be an expert very quickly in a field that you probably didn't study, and you've got to just be able to read and understand principles quite quickly, and then understand what parts or how you're going to do something. And AI makes it so much faster to just compile research, streamline it, and then talk to relevant parties or suppliers and actually narrow down. I just use it as a glorified search engine, essentially, but you can also use it to pull up research papers and actually say, okay, what information actually backs up what you're claiming, which you couldn't really, I struggle to do with Google.
Yeah, but when you left the industry to where you re-entered the industry, it's completely different now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, back then it was just so audited, like, 'cause I was in a medical company. So everything was just so slow. I think you had all the time in the world to become an expert because the product wasn't. Yeah, it took like 7 years to get to market. Like most of the time now, it's like we needed it yesterday. Like where is it? So yeah, different game.
Different game nowadays. Okay. Well, this is actually a good segue because I want to bring up a study that I saw the other day. It's been talked about a lot across a lot of the channels that I actually follow. And it might help us understand where some of the weaknesses AI might have in terms of looking at humans. And as much as I just said that, if things go wrong with a training program and if you've got a fixed program, there's nothing that you can do to adjust it. ChatGPT might be able to adjust it for you, but there is an assumption in some respects that you give someone a workout, they will respond in a particular way, and therefore next week you might increase that training load and they'll respond again, and next week do the same thing. And we've also probably been under the impression for years that, with running, you increase your training volume by 10% a week, and, you might increase swim load by X and so forth, and that humans are relatively predictable. Whereas they're not. We sort of know that, but I don't know that all coaches know that, and I don't know that AI knows that. And there was a study, and it's only just come out in 2026 by Ogden and colleagues, and it actually asked a pretty simple question. It said, if you give the same person essentially the same training program twice, and they're starting from a similar level of fitness each time, will they adapt in the same way both times? So this isn't giving two different athletes the same program. This is giving the same athlete the same program, starting from the same level of fitness each time. And if they improved a certain percent the first time around, do we assume that they'll improve exactly the same amount the second time around? Because we already know that different people do respond differently to identical training programs. Your training mate beside you might get fitter a lot quicker than you, and you're both following the same program from the coach. One athlete may make a big change in VO2 from a training block, while the other athlete only improves, just marginally. But the reason this study was talked about a lot was because we were looking at the same athlete. So what they did is they found, and unfortunately just, these athletes were untrained. So these athletes will respond quite quickly to any training stimulus as such. When you're sort of more well-trained, you don't respond as quickly. But there were 42 middle-aged men and women, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, go the middle-aged.
Go the middle-aged. They did 8 weeks of training, and then they did 8 weeks of detraining. So followed by another 8 weeks of training again. So repeating the initial 8-week training block. The detraining period was designed to bring the participants back towards the original fitness that they actually started at. So they were pretty confident that each time they undertook this 8-week training period, they were starting from the same level of fitness. And each training block involved 3 supervised interval sessions per week. They were using 3 different workouts, including longer intervals. They used 30-15 high-intensity intervals. Importantly, the sessions were all supervised and adjusted according to the day-to-day performance of the athlete and the rate of perceived exertion that they were under, rather than just simply prescribing, each time you do it, you're going to do this watts, regardless of your level of fitness. So it was pretty highly personalized. And they were also pretty successful in making the 2 starting points of the training periods quite similar using that T-training block. So what happened? So let's talk about the important stuff here. How much someone improved during the first training block did a very poor job of predicting how much that same person improved from the second training block. So let's say, for example, some of the athletes were really big responders from the first training block. they weren't necessarily or didn't necessarily respond in the same way the second time around. And equally, some people who didn't respond that well in the first training block responded a lot better in the second training block. So what we get from this is that different athletes can respond differently to the same training. It's also a case of the same athletes can respond differently to similar training at different times. And the conversation that I want us to explore now is, we have a situation here where I think if you wrote an 8-week program for someone, gave it to them, they responded in a particular way, we automatically as coaches assume that that's the right thing to do and we should repeat it again and off we go. But it doesn't necessarily happen. And this is where if someone's relying on a template training program, or in some respects, even using something like ChatGPT, ChatGPT doesn't ask all the questions that you need to ask of an athlete to work out, are you responding or not? So from your guys' perspective, from, let's say, Guy, how do you measure how an athlete is responding to training, and what do you do to track fitness changes across time to make sure that the training that you're giving them is moving them in the right direction? WA Coach of the Year.
Okay, I'm going to sound old school here. Like there are a few data pieces that we would use, like a Whoop or HRV, and we can track it that way. But primarily, it's going to be like talking to that athlete and understanding their individual stresses, because that's where I get my biggest gains from their understanding. Yes, at the end of like a set block, let's say a block is 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever, where the end goal is. After a period of time, we might do a test, not a classic test like FTP, but maybe I chuck them into a park run or a local 10K and I've got some data points off that. Or we've got this really cool winter season here, ADA cycling. So they do 20K time trials on the same piece of road every time. So they might get something like that. But really, all of the points and the progression comes from understanding that athlete and the stresses they're under, aside from the data that I'm getting through Final Surge. That often does help. But people forget to wear their watches. So all of that accumulated stress is like changes. It's very variable. So I would say in a nutshell, it's off understanding an athlete and what they're going through on any given week at any given time. And the progressions can be placed a little bit on data, but it's not always that way.
Yeah. So human interaction is the strongest way for you to work out if it's going forward. Kate, what happens for you?
I wouldn't say that I would be that much different at all. There would be, obviously, if we're looking at for signs of improvement, the first things we're going to be looking at some pace or, power output, and how is the heart rate coming down for the same amount of effort over time. Then if you're looking at resting heart rate in the mornings might be something that we're monitoring, but the rest of the time, it's just all about life. We know that when I've got a lot of teachers, and so I know for 2 weeks of school holidays, they like to bump it up and do more, but then that first week back at school, we know that it's going to be, like it's hard, everything happens at once. We try and plan to have a deload week at that point in time. It's, female athletes of a certain age, 3 weeks of the month are great. 1 week of the month is not so great. What happens during that time? How do we change things?
Yeah.
There's no one set standard of anything. I can't think you can say this is what we use all the time, because it's different with every single athlete.
Yeah. So you guys place communication at the forefront of tracking, I'm going to say performance change, but tracking how people are feeling about their training more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. Tex, as an athlete, you must know when things sort of plateau a little bit in terms of performance just from the feel of the session, and that performance change doesn't happen necessarily in a linear fashion, that it's almost like a staircase. Sometimes you can go through periods where you do weeks upon weeks and you're like, nothing really feels very similar. and then all of a sudden you'll have a sort of a leap where, well, I'm not going to say a leap, but certainly you can feel, especially when we have big build-ups to races, it's not like week on week you can just immediately feel a shift in fitness. It tends to happen in sort of an oscillating way. Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yeah. I mean, still do the sport because I feel like I'm constantly getting better. If I wasn't feeling like I was improving, I probably wouldn't do the sport anymore, because that's kind of what drives me a bit, is like seeing that improvement. And there is like expected a bit of oscillation after a race to sort of have some downtime, rather than trying to string together as many races in a year. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the best thing to turn up to a race and really fit is just consistency. And so it's trying to manage that with communication and training to stay as healthy as possible, to just layer on week, and we can build that intensity. And you're right, there's no real metric that we ever use. It's kind of just a variation and stimulus as we get to the end goal.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the big points that's been discussed about this study is, where do we place? And it's a question I asked Kate and Guy about how they coach in the week before I wanted to talk about this. We talk about Training Peaks, and they have built their whole entire system off the fact that they have copyrighted the term training stress score, acute training load, chronic training load, and the performance manager chart, which helps us see the trends in all these. And what a lot of people have actually gone out there and said, if I perform a session that has a TSS score of X, then my performance manager chart will react in a particular way. Either it will assume I've got a level of fatigue and therefore I need a period of recovery thereafter. And it's imagining that the human body, if it faces a 200 TSS day, responds exactly the same every single time. Now, this study would help us understand that that's not actually the case. For some of these athletes, let's say a 200 TSS day in the first 8 weeks created a fitness change. In the next 8 weeks, they maybe didn't get any fitness change at all. So there's a lot of performance platforms out there that might say that this athlete, if they do 200 TSS, they are going to get fitter, and they assume they're going to get fitter every single time. And this study is telling us, well, maybe that's not the case at all. And the one thing about load metrics like TSS, acute training load, chronic training load, form and fitness, is that they don't account for the fact that the human body doesn't respond exactly the same every single time it's exposed to exactly the same workout. And this study would actually suggest that. So if you don't ask the athlete how they're feeling and you simply follow the metrics, well, this study could tell you this athlete's really fit, and for the last 8 weeks, they haven't been responding at all in truth. But the performance markers, they don't take that into account. So if you're not talking to your athlete and asking them how they're feeling, then you're probably going to be missing a big piece of the puzzle. The other thing about this that's really important for people to understand is that we're not the same every single day we train. And a lot of the external metrics that we measure, power, pace, speed as such, time splits and so forth, on a day-to-day basis, a lot of athletes don't allow themselves the flexibility to understand that their body may not perform exactly the same on every single day. As I mentioned before, it's like some people in the first 8 weeks of the study probably felt $1 million. And then maybe in the second week that they performed the 8-week block, they had a lot of life stress on, and their body just didn't respond in exactly the same way. But did those athletes downregulate their expectations in account of the extra life stress that was on their plate? Because we have
No,
of course they did. Because we're never going to lower our FTP. Our FTP is our FTP all the time.
I'm tired. I'm doing more. I'm doing more. Get better.
I'm doing more.
I think it's hard. They need to understand that sometimes too, those numbers are just a guide. And even if they can't hit them on that day, they should still do the session But, just adjust, because you're still going to get something out of it, even if you're not hitting those same numbers. Like, there's still something to be gained.
There is something to be gained. So in theory, and this is where ChatGPT is not going to help us, because it's going to give us a very clean mathematical established program based on what it knows about training load, which is probably going to be what it's learned from something like TSS or the like. Maybe one of the best metrics is RPE, because RPE is the most immediate calculation of the brain of how you're actually feeling on the day. And so RPE is probably going to be the one over those 2 8-week blocks where people might have said in the second 8 weeks, when they were receiving exactly the same training program, that their 7 out of 10 RPE in the first 8 weeks that they did it, all of a sudden felt like a 9 out of 10 RPE for exactly the same workout in the next 8 weeks. And a coach could have picked up on that. So that 200 TSS session, people would have thought that's exactly the same across week one of the first 8 weeks to the second 8 weeks. But if RPE was different, we might have got a more sensitive feedback as to how that athlete was truly feeling. And a lot of people don't ask that RPE question enough, but it is the most immediate and truthful illustration of how hard a session is actually going for the athletes. So it's certainly something to consider as well. And on that, I'm going to add one more thing to this, okay? And I don't know if you guys have ever asked this of your athletes before, or have ever been asked this question, okay? Has any athlete ever come up to you, casual guy, and asked you, what's the easiest I can go to still get benefit from this workout?
Yes.
Have people asked you that?
Actually, I'm thinking of one of my Raphael won't listen to this. I'm thinking of Raphael.
Just throw him under the bus.
Coach of the year, everyone.
Yeah.
So, how easy can I go to get some benefit? I'm like, well, if you live in a hot climate, you can actually probably go pretty easy because you got heat stress. So,
he lives in
you
Singapore.
go pretty easy. Hey, everyone knows who Raphael is.
In Singapore at 645 on the boulevard. But it's not a regular question that athletes ask. Like the athletes.
I don't think I've had that. I think I get more regularly when people are asking for a new program. Like, what's the least amount of work I need to do to get me through a particular race? Like, I'm doing a half. What would be, how much, what is the least, like, what's the minimum amount of training I would need to do that would get me through it?
Get through the half. I'm doing, that's a different conversation too within the session, which I think a lot of people go with no pain, no gain. Intensity is more beneficial than not. Therefore, I will work at the highest possible intensity that I can. But it's a question I posed to one of my athletes recently, is that I've never been asked by someone, and I have a session, and Jack will know this session. I stole it from Training Peaks years ago. The description of it is zone 1, embarrassingly slow, best done alone. And that's the description of the session. Now, zone 1 heart rate is a heart rate that none of my athletes have ever gone round running in. Like, no one will go round running in it. But the reason I ask that question is that when we're trying to manage training load, and if we feel that an athlete's not heading in the right direction, they want to do it harder, but we may want them to do it easier. But no one's ever asked me how easy is easy and it will still be beneficial. So I was wondering whether you two had ever been asked that question before.
Only the one person out of, I don't know.
I think it's harder to slow people down. They're still feeling like everything needs to be hard. Like, you just run it. My easy run is like, zone 3, and my easy ride is like, how?
So
you need to slow down.
Jack's just showing us on the
zone 1.
Zone 1,
yeah. Hour 15 of that was zone 1.
Zone 1
yesterday.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. There you go. And some of your bike rides will be zone 1 as well. So you do
not
have
the ones
the capacity
No, for you.
Me. Okay, well, this may be for a conversation for future podcasts, because literally there's been quite a few studies come out recently trying to ask that question and try to quantify it for athletes to say, where does the sort of cutoff point exist for easy training? Because one of the studies proved that intensity and the signal that we get from intensity happens along a spectrum. And just because you transition from one zone into the next, you're taking a blend of the stresses from that zone into the next zone and onto the next zone. And there's no definitive cutoff point that you're getting X metabolic stress in zone 1 and it immediately changes when you get into zone 2, and so forth. But it was the point of the study was to say that they found that working at the bottom end of, let's say, zone 2 was as beneficial as working at the top end of zone 2. And so if your zone's 10 or 15 beats wide, depending on who set it for you, from a physiological and metabolic perspective, you're pretty much getting the same stress at the lower end as you are at the top end. However, from a recovery perspective, you do need more recovery from working at the top end to the bottom end. So are we trying to reduce the recovery time between sessions whilst getting the best metabolic benefit? I think we are. We want to do the best stress for the least recovery time. So it's a conversation for future podcasts as well. But yeah, at this point in time, Guy, you're the only person that's ever been asked, how easy can I go? So maybe we'll keep that for another conversation in the future.
Yeah.
But based on this study, I don't think we're going to be overtaken by AI anytime soon, because the human body is very difficult to predict, and even AI can't do that for us at this point in time.
Good news.
Good news, yeah. You guys can keep taking on athletes, and you can keep winning awards, Guy. So at this point in time, you are the most recognized coach on the podcast. So we will run our own podcast awards next week, and I will be giving out Coach of the Year and Athlete of the Year.
and Kate gets both.
Right, team. On that note, thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch up next week.
Thanks.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.